I like video game boss fights. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but if it is, nothing makes me more excited in a video game than seeing a big health bar pop up somewhere on the screen, and it's my job to take it down in epic fashion. I've talked about bosses a lot on this channel, mainly in the form of ranking videos. Easiest to hardest, worst to best, top 10s, stuff like that. And there's a lot more of those to come, but I had an idea to talk about a game's boss roster in a more general context. How good is their entire lineup when analysed collectively? Now, this is a lofty undertaking, as there are dozens of different ways you can approach analysing a game's boss roster. As is expected for someone like me, I've divided things up into 4 categories, defining points to analyse. After all, bitches love categories. Here they are, with some explanation behind each one. Difficulty. This category is going to be highly subjective, and I understand that. After all, player experience varies greatly. There might be selectable difficulty options or different builds you can try, stuff like that. So I'll be taking this on a case-by-case basis, and I'll try to explain my meanings for each game that I cover. I'll be reviewing things like bullshit challenges, unfair difficulty spikes, artificial difficulty. Overall, how fair a game's challenge level is for the game it's aiming to be. For example, Dark Souls 3's bosses are very challenging, but they're all quite fair for their placement in the game, as well as the type of game this is. Udex Gundyr is quite hard for new players, and a veteran can beat him without getting hit, but his difficulty level as a tutorial boss is near perfect, so he would contribute favourably to the overall difficulty score. A boss like the Dragon God from Demon's Souls or the Bed of Chaos from Dark Souls 1 would contribute negatively, because they're bullshit and rely on subjectively unfair one-shot attacks to punish players far outside of the usual gameplay loop. Of course, this will all be from my difficulty perspective and experience, so any God gamers out there can feel free to disregard my scores in the comment sections below. Creativity. Again, highly subjective, but how creative is the boss roster as a collective? What ways do these bosses stand out from standard gameplay enemies? To give an example, the boss Bird from Batman Arkham Origins would receive no marks and contribute very negatively here, because he's literally just a standard enemy with more standard enemies surrounding him. Creativity can refer to things like attacks, unique mechanics, arena design, what circumstances the fight takes place in, even things like visual design. Coupled with these bosses is how different they are from each other in the roster. If you only have 2 kinds of boss fights in the game, and you fight them 5 times each, that's going to drag on you, no matter how good they are, or especially if they're not good at all. Obviously, games with smaller boss rosters will be at somewhat of a disadvantage, but I'll do my best to judge them fairly, working on their average quality regardless of their numbers. This category will also be highly subjective, but I'm going to do my best to explain myself in each case, focus more on my words, less on the number. Replayability. Do the bosses offer any difference on each playthrough? This can refer to a couple of things. Either the game itself has a variety of builds and weapons for you to use against the bosses, like in most RPGs, they have different strategies you can employ against them, like Mr. Freeze in Arkham City, or the bosses have multiple different forms they can take against you, like Ornstein and Smough having 2 different Phase 2s. This is a more objective category, because I can just look at the features and give you the analysis. And finally, entertainment, which sadly doesn't end in TY. Bosses need to be engaging. I don't care about gamers who are apparently too mature for fun in their video games. We play these moving pictures for entertainment, and if the boss isn't doing that for you in one way or another, whether that be through fun, horror, or emotional weight, or whatever, then it's not doing its job. Collectively, the boss roster should be remembered fondly, largely from the aforementioned categories, but also just from how fun it was to go through them. These categories are not professionally picked or sanctioned by any official governing body, they're just what I believe make for the best possible boss roster, at least if you enjoy looking at big flat numbers. However, listening to the commentary made in my deep narrator voice will provide further insight into the values, which is the real thing I hope you guys can take away from these videos. This series will allow me to make videos on a lot of different games and their boss rosters without being limited to the traditional ranking formats, which have resulted in things like leaving out most of Expedition 33's fantastic boss roster out of necessity. It also means I can talk about games with smaller boss rosters without having to make a difficulty or quality ranking with only 4 or 5 entries. It's going to result in a lot more variety on the channel. I promise, I'll do my best to justify the existence of this series. So, if you're curious what I have to say about boss rosters following this grading system, feel free to tune into the video I've uploaded right after this one, the debut episode of this tentative new series, and see me put these categories into use. I think there's potential here, if I can actually do my job. So, Thank you all for watching this video detailing the details of my series. I'm sorry to put this in its own separate video, but I didn't feel like putting a condensed version at the start of every episode in this series. My videos have been long enough lately as it is. If you want to see sneak peeks of new videos, as well as early access and special voting privileges, feel free to visit my Patreon in the description below. With all that said, I think we're done here. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this new boss grading series.